Ladies and gentlemen, today, I want to talk to the woman who's been overlooked, the one who feels like her efforts go unnoticed. Maybe you've been working hard, making sacrifices, and still, it seems like the world doesn't see you. Well, I've got good news for you. God sees you. Even when the world overlooks you, He is watching every step you take, every prayer you whisper, and every act of kindness you extend. I want you to know, my friend, that you are not invisible. God sees your heart. He knows the dreams you've tucked away, the tears you've shed in the quiet of the night. When others may pass you by, God is always there, with His loving eyes upon you. He sees your faithfulness, even in the moments when it feels like no one else does. And let me tell you something beautiful. God's timing is perfect. There may be times when you feel like nothing is happening, like your hard work and dedication are being ignored. But I want to remind you today that God is working behind the scenes. He is preparing something great for you. And just because you don't see it yet doesn't mean it's not coming. In the silence, He is crafting a masterpiece, and your name is written all over. You might feel like you're carrying a heavy load, doing the best you can, yet no one seems to notice. But I want you to take heart today. Your worth is not determined by the applause of this world. God has already validated you. He says you are enough. He says you are chosen. He says you are His beloved daughter, and He has a plan for you that no one can take away. There's strength in endurance. Your perseverance is powerful. Even when no one is cheering you on, when you feel weary and invisible, God is cheering you on. He's proud of you for staying strong, for standing tall in the face of challenges. Your efforts are not in vain. You may not see the results today, but trust me, they are coming. The seeds you've planted in faith will blossom in His perfect time. Now, I know there are some of you here who have faced rejection. Maybe you've been overlooked by others. Maybe you've been passed up for opportunities, or maybe people just don't seem to appreciate you. But I want to remind you of something. God's vision of you is greater than human perception. When the world rejects you, He is still for you. God has a purpose for your life that no one can take away. He has seen your struggles, and He is working on something that is far beyond anything you could imagine. So, don't give up. Don't let the opinions of others define who you are. God has a plan for you, or God has a plan for you. He sees you right where you are, and He is going to take you to places you've never dreamed of. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible. The Creator of the universe has His eyes on you, and He is leading you toward a future full of hope, peace, and purpose. So today, let's hold our heads high, knowing that God sees us even when the world doesn't. Keep believing, keep trusting, because He's got something great in store for you. You are unstoppable. There are moments in life when we feel unnoticed. In the busy, loud world around us, it's easy to feel like a mere blip on the radar. We give our best effort at work, at home, or in our relationships. And sometimes it seems like no one is paying attention. No one sees the late nights, the quiet sacrifices, the prayers whispered in the stillness. We may wonder, does anyone notice what I'm doing? Does anyone care about the pain or struggles I'm facing? But in these moments of doubt, there is a powerful truth that we must hold on to. God sees you. He sees your heart, your efforts, and your pain even when no one else does. You see, God's care is not always visible in the way that we expect. It doesn't always come with the accolades or recognition we might hope for from others. In fact, God's care often comes in the quiet, unseen moments. In the moments when no one else is around, when the world is preoccupied with its own distractions, God is still watching. He is aware of every tear, every sacrifice, and every prayer. God's care for you is profound intimate and unshakable, even when it feels like you're all alone in your journey. God's unseen care is an assurance that even in our most isolated moments, we are not abandoned. When we feel like we're just going through the motions of life, unnoticed and unappreciated, God is there, paying attention to every detail. He sees you as a beloved child, not as someone who is merely filling space or playing a supporting role in someone else's story. He sees you as His creation, a unique individual, someone worthy of love and attention. There is something incredibly beautiful about knowing that God's love for us doesn't depend on external recognition. In a world where we often measure our value based on how much attention we get or how much we are appreciated, God's love flips the script. His care for us is not conditional on what others see or acknowledge. The world might overlook you, but God never will. Even if your hard work goes unnoticed, even if you feel forgotten by those around you, God's eyes are always upon you. Take a moment to think about that. God, the creator of the universe, sees you in all the vastness of creation, in the millions of people on this planet. He sees you individually. He sees the smallest details of your life. He sees the thoughts you have when no one else is watching. He sees the desires of your heart, even the ones you're afraid to express. He sees the moments of weakness and fear, and He lovingly holds them, knowing exactly what you need. He sees when you try and fail, when you succeed and soar, and when you feel lost or uncertain. His care doesn't depend on whether you're at your best or at your worst. It's constant, steady, and perfect. What makes God's unseen care so powerful is that it doesn't require anyone else to validate it. It doesn't rely on social approval or public recognition. There are counts when you might not feel like anyone else is paying attention to you. You might feel like your contributions are going unnoticed at work, or that your efforts to love and care for those around you are unappreciated. But even when the world fails to acknowledge your worth, God never does. The Bible tells us in Psalm 139:1-4, "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, Lord, you know it completely." These words remind us that God is aware of every moment of our lives, even the ones that feel insignificant. He knows when we sit down to rest, when we rise to face the challenges of the day, and even the thoughts that cross our minds. There is no part of our lives that is hidden from Him. This level of care might be difficult to fathom. It's a love that goes beyond what we can comprehend. The beauty of God's unseen care is that it's not only about what He does for us, but about who He is to us. He is always present, always aware, and always ready to show His love to us in ways we might not immediately recognize. Often, we think of God's care in terms of tangible blessings, like financial provision or physical healing. While God does provide and bless us in those ways, His unseen care is about something even deeper. It's about His constant presence in our lives, even when we can't physically see Him. It's the quiet comfort of knowing that, even in the moments of loneliness, God is with us. It's the assurance that when we walk through difficult times, He is beside us, guiding us and comforting us with His love. In the midst of life's chaos, God's unseen care is a reminder that we are not alone. You may be going through a season where you feel isolated, when it seems like no one understands what you're facing. But God does. He sees the battles you fight in secret, the fears you carry, and the dreams that feel out of reach. He is intimately aware of your struggles and desires. And even if no one else acknowledges what you're going through, He does. His care for you never wavers. Think about how often we look for recognition from the world around us. We seek validation from others, wanting to feel noticed, appreciated, and loved. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be seen and acknowledged. But when we place our ultimate hope in the recognition of others, we can become discouraged when it doesn't come. What if we could learn to rest in the truth that we don't need the world's recognition to be valuable? What if we could let God's unseen care be enough? God's care is not based on our performance or our ability to meet the expectations of others. His love for us is unconditional and unwavering. He sees beyond our mistakes, our failures, and our shortcomings. And in His eyes, we are always worthy of love, attention, care. Even when no one else sees us, God sees us. Even when we feel invisible to the world, God knows us intimately and cares for us deeply. So, the next time you feel overlooked or unseen, remember this: God is watching. He sees every effort, every tear, every prayer, and every act of love. His care for you is real, even if the world doesn't notice. His love for you is constant, even when the world fails to acknowledge your worth. You are never invisible to God. He sees you, He loves you, and He will never leave you. Hold on to that truth. It's a powerful reminder that even in the unseen moments, God is working on your behalf. His care is not just for the public moments of success, but for the quiet, unnoticed moments of your life. And in those moments, He is drawing near to you with love, comfort, and peace. God sees you. And that, my friend, is all that truly matters. There are times in life when everything seems to quiet down. The noise of the world fades, the rush of activity slows, we find ourselves alone in the silence. It's during these moments of stillness that we often feel the weight of uncertainty. We wonder if we're moving in the right direction, if we're on the path we were meant to be on, or if our efforts even matter. Silence can be intimidating. It can feel empty, as though nothing is happening, as though we are alone in a void waiting for something to change. But I want to remind you today, there is a profound purpose in the silence. The quiet moments are not empty. They are filled with potential, with God's presence, and with an opportunity for growth that we often fail to recognize. Silence is not always a sign of inactivity. In fact, it's often in the quiet moments that God does some of His most important work in our lives. We live in a world that is constantly buzzing with activity. Phones ringing, messages pinging, meetings, events, and everything in between. The noise can be overwhelming, and it can sometimes distract us from hearing the still, small voice of God. In the midst of all the noise, it's easy to assume that nothing is happening when we find ourselves in a place of silence. But what if the silence isn't something to fear? What if the silence is actually where God is working the most in our hearts? The silence is a place of preparation. It's in the quiet, unhurried moments that God is laying the foundation for what is to come. We often think that we have to be doing something all the time, working hard, making progress, achieving goals. But sometimes the most important work is happening when we feel like nothing is happening. Think of the seasons of nature when the trees are bare and the ground is frozen. It may seem like nothing is growing, but beneath the surface, roots are being strengthened, seeds are being nourished, and the groundwork for new life is being laid. Similarly, in our lives, the silent seasons are often when God is preparing us for something greater. We may not see it right away, but the time spent in silence is never wasted. It's God's way of strengthening us for what lies ahead. Silence is also a time of reflection. In the busyness of life, we rarely take the time to pause and reflect on where we've been and where we're going. But silence forces us to confront our thoughts, our emotions, and our desires. It gives us the space to examine our hearts and evaluate our priorities. In this quiet space, God often speaks to us in ways that are hard to hear when we're distracted by the noise of life. The silence can be uncomfortable because it forces us to slow down, to face the parts of ourselves that we might be trying to avoid. But it's in these moments of self-reflection that we can hear God's voice more clearly, leading us to deeper understanding and greater wisdom. There is a powerful purpose in the silence because it is a time for God to shape our character. We may think that we only grow during moments of outward achievement or success, but real transformation often happens in the stillness. It's during times when we feel like we are not moving forward, when progress seems stalled, that God is doing some of His most important work in us. He is refining us, developing our patience, and deepening our trust in Him. Just as gold is purified in the fire, our character is shaped in the silence. The world may not see the work God is doing in those quiet moments, but God is preparing us for something much greater than we can even imagine. In the silence, we are invited to rest in God's presence. It's easy to get caught up in striving and trying to make things happen on our own, but silence offers us a moment to simply be. We don't have to perform. We don't have to impress. We don't have to prove anything. We can just rest in the knowledge that God is with us, that He sees us, and that He is working on our behalf, even when we can't see it. This is a difficult lesson for many of us to learn. We are so accustomed to the noise, to the hustle and bustle of life that we forget how to be still. But the truth is that God calls us to rest. He calls us to surrender our striving and allow Him to work in His own timing. When we are silent, we open ourselves to His presence, to His peace, and to His love. Sometimes, silence is a time for us to pray and listen. We may feel like our prayers go unanswered because we don't see immediate results, but the silence is an invitation to draw closer to God. It's in these moments of stillness that God can speak to our hearts in ways that we might not hear during times of busyness. When we quiet our hearts and minds, we make space for God to move in. It's often in the silence that we receive the answers we've been waiting for, the guidance we've been seeking, or the peace we've been longing for. It's not always in the loud, dramatic moments of life that we hear God the clearest. Sometimes it's in the quiet, still moments that He speaks to us most profoundly. The silence also reminds us that God's timing is different from ours. We live in a culture that values instant gratification. We want things to happen quickly, and we measure success by how fast we can achieve our goals. But God's timeline is often much slower. He doesn't work according to our schedules or our deadlines. Sometimes we are called to wait in this silence because God is teaching us patience, trust, and dependence on Him. The silence is not a sign that God has forgotten about us or that He is inactive. On the contrary, it is often during these quiet times that He is preparing something great in our lives. We may not understand it right away, but we can trust that God's timing is perfect and that the silence will not last forever. It's also important to remember that silence is not the same as abandonment. We may feel alone, but God is still with us. The silence can feel like a desert, a dry and barren place, but it's in the desert that God sometimes does His deepest work. Think of the stories in the Bible where God used times of wilderness and silence to refine His people. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before leading the Israelites out of Egypt. Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness before beginning His ministry. These periods of silence and solitude were not wasted. They were times of preparation, of deepening faith, and of drawing closer to God. In the silence, God is preparing us for the next step of our journey. Even when it feels like nothing is happening, trust that God is working behind the scenes. The silence is not something to fear, but something to embrace. In the quiet moments, we are invited to rest, to reflect, to grow, and to listen. It's in the silence that we often find God's most profound work being done in us. We may not always understand the purpose of the silence, but we can trust that God is present, that He is working, and that He has a purpose for every moment of our lives. So, when you find yourself in a season of silence, don't despair. Instead, lean in, embrace the quiet. It's in the silence that God often speaks the loudest. Life in all its beauty and challenges requires something of us. Something that often isn't talked about in the hustle and bustle of everyday life. That something is endurance. Endurance is the ability to keep moving forward, to keep going even when things get tough, when the road is long, when the path seems unclear, and when the weight of the journey feels too heavy to carry. It is the strength to press on despite the difficulties, the courage to stand firm in the face of adversity, and the determination to never give up. Endurance is not something that comes easily. It's not something that we can simply wish into existence. Rather, endurance is forged through trials and challenges, through moments when we feel like giving up but choose to press on instead. It's built over time through both small victories and great struggles. And it is in these moments of challenge that we discover the depth of our own strength, the resilience that lies within of our faith. When we think about endurance, we often think about physical strength. It's easy to picture someone running a marathon, pushing through the fatigue and exhaustion, putting one foot in front of the other despite the overwhelming desire to quit. But endurance is not just a physical strength. It is a mental and emotional strength too. It is the ability to keep going, even when the circumstances don't seem to be changing, when the progress feels slow, and when the odds are stacked against us. The strength of endurance doesn't come from our own ability to control everything or our own power to change the situation. It comes from a deeper well, a well that is filled by our faith, our hope, and our trust in God. There will be times in life when it feels like nothing is happening, when it feels like the efforts we are putting forth are not making a difference. But it is in these moments that endurance becomes crucial. It is in these moments that we must remind ourselves that the work we are doing is not in vain, even if we can't see the results right away. Our strength is not found in our immediate circumstance, but in our ability to keep moving forward with faith and perseverance. One of the most powerful aspects of endurance is its ability to transform us. Endurance is not just about pushing through difficult circumstances. It's about growing stronger through those circumstances. It's about becoming more resilient, more patient, and more steadfast as we face challenges. Each difficulty we encounter, each obstacle we overcome, adds to our strength and builds our character. We become more than we were before the challenge because we've learned how to stand firm, how to remain hopeful, and how to trust in something greater than ourselves. There is a verse in the Bible that speaks to this truth. In Romans 5:3-4, it says, "We can rejoice too when we run into problems and trials, for we know that they help us develop endurance. And endurance develops strength of character, and character strengthens our confident hope of salvation." This verse reminds us that the challenges we face are not meaningless. They are part of a greater purpose. God uses these moments to develop our endurance, our character, and our hope. What we may see as setbacks or hardships, God uses to shape us into the people He has created us to be. It's through these trials that our endurance grows. And as our endurance grows, so does our character. Endurance is also about trust. It is the trust that even in the most difficult times, God is still with us. It is the belief that no matter how long the journey may seem, we are not walking it alone. It is knowing that God is by our side, providing us with the strength and courage to keep going, even when we can't see the end of the road. This trust is what sustains us when everything around us seems uncertain. It's what keeps us moving forward when we feel like we're running on empty. And it's what gives us the strength to endure even the most challenging seasons of life. Endurance doesn't mean that we won't have moments of weakness or doubt. It doesn't mean that we won't feel tired, frustrated, or discouraged along the way. In fact, endurance is most powerful in the moments when we feel at our weakest. It's in those moments of struggle that endurance shines brightest. Because it is in those moments that we realize that our strength doesn't come from our own abilities, but from something far greater. Our endurance is fueled by our faith, our trust in God, and our belief that He is with us every step of the way. Sometimes the strength of endurance is found not in grand victories, but in small, everyday acts of perseverance. It's in the daily commitment to show up even when it's hard. It's in continuing to love when you feel unloved, continuing to hope when hope feels distant, continuing to believe when doubt tries to take root. Endurance is about consistency, the ability to keep going day after day, no matter how difficult the road may be. And it is this consistency that makes us stronger, that builds our faith, and that prepares us for whatever comes next. There's a profound beauty in the fact that endurance is a choice. It's a choice we make each day, even when things are hard. It's a decision to keep moving forward, to keep trusting, and to keep believing. Endurance is not something that just happens to us. It is something that we actively choose to embrace. It's a mindset, a heart posture, and a commitment to persevere no matter the obstacles we face. One of the most inspiring examples of endurance can be found in the story of Job in the Bible. Job faced unimaginable loss and suffering. He lost his wealth, his health, and his family. He endured pain and sorrow beyond what most of us could ever imagine. But through it all, Job never gave up. He continued to trust in God even when he didn't understand why he was suffering. His endurance, his ability to persevere in the midst of trials, is a powerful testament to the strength that comes from faith. And it is this same strength that is available to us today. We may not face the same trials as Job, but we all have our own struggle. Times when it feels like the weight of the world is on our shoulders. When we wonder if we can go on, but the same God who sustained Job, the same God who gives us the strength to endure, is with us every step of the way. The strength of endurance is not a fleeting thing. It is something that is built over time. It is something that grows as we face challenges, overcome obstacles, and continue to trust in God. It is a strength that comes from within, a strength that is forged in the fire of life's trials. And it is a strength that will carry us through whatever lies ahead. Endurance is the quiet strength that keeps us going when we don't feel that going on. It is the strength to take one more step, to press on in the face of adversity, and to keep trusting in God's faithfulness. It's the power to hold on even when everything around us seems to be falling apart. And it is this strength that will see us through to the other side. So no matter where you are today, no matter what challenges you are facing, know this: you have the strength to endure. It is within you. God has given you the resilience, the courage, and the faith to keep going. And as you endure, you will grow stronger, your character will be refined, and your hope will be renewed. You are not alone on this journey. God is with you, and He will give you the strength to keep moving forward, one step at a time. In life, we often seek approval and recognition from the people around us. We want to be acknowledged for our efforts, validated for our worth, and appreciated for the work we put into the world. whether in our relationships, careers, or personal endeavors. There is a natural desire for others to see us affirm our value, to confirm that we are on the right path. This validation, though comforting, is not the ultimate source of our true worth. The approval of the world is fleeting and fragile, but there is a higher form of validation that transcends all earthly acknowledgement: divine validation. This is the affirmation and approval that comes from God Himself, a validation that is steadfast, eternal, and unshakable. In a world that often measures worth by achievements, success, or popularity, the idea of divine validation can seem abstract or elusive. Yet, it is the most profound and life-changing form of approval we can receive. Divine validation does not depend on our performance, our status, or how others perceive us. It is rooted in God's love for us, His purpose for our lives, and His eternal truth. It is an affirmation that goes beyond outward appearances and reaches deep into the heart of who we are. The foundation of divine validation is the truth that we are created in the image of God, fearfully and wonderfully made. This divine truth is the first step toward understanding that we do not need to earn our worth in the eyes of others. From the moment we were conceived, we were seen, known, and loved by God. He knows us intimately, our strengths, our weaknesses, our joys, our struggles, and still He affirms our value. Unlike human approval, which can be conditional and fleeting, God's validation is constant and unconditional. It is not based on our performance or our ability to meet certain standards. It is based on who He says we are. There is a profound comfort in knowing that God sees us, not just for what we do, but for who we are. While the world might evaluate us by external achievements or how we measure up to others, God sees beyond the surface. He sees our hearts, our intentions, and our potential. His validation is not determined by our failures or successes, but by His unchanging love for us. This truth frees us from the pressure to conform to the expectations of others and allows us to live fully as who God created us to be. One of the most powerful examples of divine validation can be found in the life of Jesus. His validation affirms that we are worthy of His love and grace, and that His opinion of us is the only one that truly matters. Finally, divine validation gives us the confidence to keep going. Life can be difficult, and there will be times when we face rejection, disappointment, and failure. In those moments, it is easy to question our worth and wonder if we are on the right path. But when we remember that we are validated by God, we can find the strength to keep moving forward. God's approval is a constant source of encouragement, reminding us that we are not alone in our journey. His validation helps us stand tall, knowing that we are beloved, chosen, and equipped to fulfill the purpose He has for us. Divine validation is the most powerful form we can receive. It is a validation that does not depend on our performance, our achievements, or the opinions of others. It is rooted in God's love for us, His purpose for our lives, and the truth that we are His beloved children. When we live in the reality of God's validation, we are free from the pressure to seek approval from the world. We can live authentically, securely, and confidently, knowing that we are valued by the Creator of the universe. Divine validation is a reminder that we are enough, just as we are, and that God's love for us is unchanging. This validation gives us the strength and courage to continue our journey, knowing that we are never alone, and that God is always with us, affirming our worth every step of the way. In our fast-paced, results-driven world, patience can feel like a scarce commodity. We are conditioned to want things now. Instant gratification is often the norm. Whether it's in our careers, relationships, or personal goals, the idea of waiting for something to unfold over time can be frustrating and anxiety-inducing. Yet, there is a profound truth in the understanding that God's timing is perfect. And this truth can transform our approach to life's challenges, hopes, and aspirations. Trusting God's timing is not always easy. It requires faith and surrender, two aspects of the Christian journey that often stretch us beyond our comfort zones. But the beauty of trusting God's timing lies in the peace and assurance that He has a purpose for every season of our lives. His plan is unfold, even when we can't see the full picture. And when we place our trust in Him, we can rest in the knowledge that He knows what is best for us at the right moment and for His glory. At the core of trusting God's timing is recognizing that His perspective is infinitely greater than ours. We, as humans, are bound by time. Our days are filled with routines, deadlines, and goals that we want to achieve within certain time frames. We think we know when things should happen and how they should unfold. But God is not bound by time. He is the creator of time and stands outside of it. He sees the beginning, the middle, and the end all at once. He knows what is ahead for us, and He knows the precise moment when everything will fall into place. The Bible tells us that God's understanding is far beyond our comprehension. In Isaiah 55, 8-9, God says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." This verse is a reminder that while we may have our own plans and desires, God's timing and His ways are always better. He sees things we cannot see and works things together in ways we cannot understand in the moment. Our limited perspective can cause us to become impatient, wondering why things aren't happening when we want them to. But it is in these moments of waiting that we are invited to trust. Trust that God, in His wisdom and love, is orchestrating every detail of our lives with precision and care. He has not forgotten about us. He has not overlooked our needs. Instead, He is working on a timeline that is far more perfect than anything we could design for ourselves. Waiting is one of the most challenging aspects of the human experience. Whether we are waiting for a promotion at work, the healing of a loved one, the restoration of a relationship, or the fulfillment of a long-held dream, the waiting period often feels agonizing. We wonder, why hasn't it happened yet? Why does it seem like everyone else is moving forward while I am stuck in this waiting room? It's important to acknowledge that these feelings of frustration and impatience are normal. Waiting can stir up feelings of inadequacy, doubt, even discouragement. We may wonder if we are doing something wrong, or if we have missed some important sign that should have guided us to the next step. But it is in these moments of waiting that God is often doing the deepest work in us. He is refining our character, shaping our hearts, and teaching us to depend on Him more fully. Waiting is not a time of stagnation. It is a time of preparation. In the Bible, we see countless examples of people who had to wait for God's perfect timing. One of the most well-known examples is that of Abraham and Sarah. God promised them a child, but they had to wait many years for that promise to be fulfilled. In fact, they were well into their old age before the promise came to fruition. During that waiting period, they tried to take matters into their own hands, and it led to complications and heartache. But when the time was right, God brought forth the promised child, Isaac. This story reminds us that God's promises are true, but they often take time to unfold. We must trust that He is working, even when we don't see immediate results. Trusting in God's timing requires patience. Patience is not just the ability to wait. It is the ability to wait with the right attitude, fully believing that God is in control. Patience allows us to remain calm and confident in the face of uncertainty, knowing that God is working behind the scenes. It is not passive waiting, filled with faith, hope, and trust. The Apostle James offers an encouraging word on patience in James 5, 7, 8. Brothers and sisters, until the Lord's coming. See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains. You too be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. Here, James compares patience to the farmers waiting for the harvest. Just as a farmer cannot rush the growth of crops, we cannot rush the unfolding of God's plans. There is a season for everything, and each season requires its own unique preparation. Just as the farmer trusts the process, we must trust that God's timing will produce the fruit He has promised. During the waiting periods in our lives, we have the opportunity to develop a deeper trust in God. As we wait, we learn to release control and trust that He knows what is best. This trust allows us to experience peace, even in the midst of uncertainty. We learn to surrender our plans and desires to God, believing that He will provide for us in His perfect way and at the perfect time. God doesn't waste the waiting seasons of our lives. While we may feel as though nothing is happening, God is often doing more than we realize. Waiting can be a time of growth, spiritually, emotionally, and relationally. In the process of waiting, we learn to rely on God more deeply, and our faith becomes stronger. We come to understand that the timing of our desires, while important, is not as critical as aligning ourselves with God's will. When we trust His timing, we come to know that the outcome will be far better than anything we could have orchestrated on our own. The psalmist writes in Psalm 27:20, "Who wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord." This verse reminds us that waiting is not a passive act, it is an active one. It takes strength to wait. It takes courage to trust that God is working, even when we can't see it. But the reward of trusting in God's timing is worth the wait. When we wait on God, we grow in strength, character, and patience. When we trust God's timing, we can be confident that the outcome will be perfect. God's timing is never too early or too late. It is always just right. We may not understand the delays or detours, but we can trust that they are part of God's plan for our good. Romans 8:28 reminds us, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." God's timing is never arbitrary. It is always intentional, and it always leads to His ultimate purpose for our lives. When we look back on our lives, we often see that the times when we had to wait were the moments that shaped us the most. In the waiting, we learn to trust in God's faithfulness, and we see how He worked all things together for our good. We may not always understand the why behind the delays or struggles, but we can rest in the certainty that God is using every season to prepare us for what lies ahead. Trusting God's timing is not always easy, but it is essential to living a life of faith. It requires patience, trust, and surrender, but the reward of resting in God's timing is peace, assurance, and confidence that He is in control. As we wait, we can trust that God's plan is unfolding even when we cannot see it. We can be assured that His timing is perfect and that He will bring about the desires of our hearts at the perfect moment. Let us learn to embrace the waiting, knowing that in God's perfect timing, all things will work together for our good. Rejection is one of the most painful and challenging experiences we can face. It stirs deep feelings of inadequacy, loneliness, and self-doubt. Whether it comes from a job interview, a romantic relationship, or a personal endeavor, being rejected can make us question our worth and leave us feeling like we failed. However, rejection is not the end of our story. It is an opportunity for growth, healing, and a deeper understanding of our true identity. While rejection may cause temporary pain, it can also be the gateway to personal transformation and spiritual maturity. The pain of rejection is universal. Every person, at some point in their life, experiences the sting of being rejected in one way or another. The feeling of being turned away, overlooked, or dismissed is a blow to our emotional and psychological well-being. Rejection, especially when it comes from people or situations we care deeply about, has the power to shake our confidence and leave us questioning our value. This experience, though deeply hurtful, is part of the human condition. It reminds us that we are not invincible and that we, too, are vulnerable to the judgments and opinions of others. What makes rejection especially painful is the personal nature of it. When we are rejected, it can feel like a judgment on who we are as individuals. We internalize the rejection and begin to wonder if we are enough, if we are worthy, or if we will ever truly belong. The sting of rejection can be especially sharp when it comes from those we trust, love, or look up to. It taps into our deepest fears and insecurities, leaving us feeling exposed and fragile. However, it's important to recognize that rejection, although painful, is not a reflection of our worth. The opinions of others, though impactful, do not define who we are. God sees us, knows us in ways that no one else can. His love for us is not conditional on whether others accept or reject us. His approval does not depend on our performance or how well we meet the expectations of those around us. One of the most important truths to remember when faced with rejection is that it does not define our worth. When we are rejected, we can be tempted to internalize the experience and think that we are not good enough. We might think that our worth is tied to someone's acceptance or approval. But this is a lie. Our value is not determined by human opinions or circumstances. It is determined by God, who created us with purpose and love. The Bible tells us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Psalm 139:14. Our worth is not based on external factors or the acceptance of others. God sees us for who we truly are, not for the mistakes we've made or the rejections we've faced. His love is not contingent on how others perceive us. It is unconditional. In moments of rejection, we can turn to God and remember that His love for us never falters. We do not have to earn His approval. He has already accepted us, and that acceptance is enough. Though rejection may feel like a blow to the heart, it is not an experience that must define us. In fact, rejection can be a powerful opportunity for healing. When we face rejection, we are forced to confront our vulnerabilities and insecurities. Instead of running from the pain, we can allow ourselves to feel it and process it. This healing journey is not instantaneous, it takes time. But as we bring our pain to God and allow Him to heal our wounds, we begin to see rejection through a different lens. God is close to the brokenhearted, Psalm 34:18, and He understands our pain in ways no one else can. He is not distant or indifferent to our suffering. When we face rejection, we can turn to Him for comfort and restoration. He is the ultimate healer, able to bind up our wounds and bring peace to our hurting hearts. We do not have to face rejection alone. God is with us, ready to walk alongside us through the pain and help us rise above it. While rejection is painful, it can also be a catalyst for growth. When we experience rejection, we are given the opportunity to reflect on our lives, our goals, and our values. Rejection forces us to evaluate what truly matters to us and to realign our priorities. It challenges us to dig deep, and find the strength to keep moving forward, even when the path seems uncertain. Sometimes, rejection is a reminder that we need to grow or change. It may be that the job we applied for wasn't the right fit for us, or the relationship we invested in wasn't meant to last. In these moments, rejection can be a redirection, God's way of protecting us from something that isn't aligned with His will for our lives. We may not always understand the reasons behind the rejection, but we can trust that God is using it to shape us into the person He wants us to be. Rejection can also teach us resilience. Every time we face rejection and choose to keep going, we build emotional strength and fortitude. It is through these moments of difficulty that we develop the perseverance and courage needed to face future challenges. In the face of rejection, we learn that we are stronger than we realize, and we begin to cultivate the inner strength to keep moving forward, no matter what obstacles come our way. One of the most important lessons in overcoming rejection is the power of perseverance. It's easy to give up when we face rejection, but it's the ability to get back up and keep going that sets us apart. When we face rejection, we have a choice. We can either let it defeat us, or we can use it as fuel to keep moving forward. Perseverance is the key to breaking through the barriers that rejection sets in our path. The Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians 4:8-9 wrote about the challenges he faced in ministry, including rejection and hardship. He said, "We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed." Paul's words remind us that rejection and setbacks are inevitable, but they do not have to define us. We can press on, knowing that God is with us, strengthening us, and helping us overcome every obstacle. Another vital aspect of overcoming rejection is embracing God's plan for our lives. Rejection may cause us to feel lost or uncertain, but it's in these moments that we must turn our attention to God and trust in His sovereign will. God has a purpose for each of us, and even in times of rejection, He is at work behind the scenes. We may not understand why we were rejected, but we can trust that God is using every circumstance, good or bad, to fulfill His purpose for us. In Jeremiah 29:11, God promises, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." This verse reminds us that God's plans are always for our good. Even when rejection feels like a setback, it may be a step towards something better. God's plan for our lives is not thwarted by rejection. In fact, He often uses rejection to prepare us for what is ahead. Finally, overcoming rejection means overcoming the fear of future rejection. It's easy to become fearful after experiencing rejection, wondering if it will happen again. We might find ourselves paralyzed by the fear of being hurt once more. However, God calls us to step out in faith and not let the fear of rejection keep us from pursuing our dreams, relationships, or goals. In Isaiah 41:10, God reassures us, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." With God on our side, we can face the future with courage, knowing that He will guide us through any rejection we may encounter. The fear of rejection need not control us. Instead, we can move forward in confidence, knowing that God's plans for us are greater than any setback. Rejection is a difficult and painful experience, but it does not have to define us. By turning to God in the midst of rejection, we can find healing, strength, and a renewed sense of purpose. We are not rejected by God. His love for us is unwavering, and His plan for our lives remains intact. When we trust in God's timing and embrace His purpose, we can rise above rejection and grow into the people He has called us to be. Rejection is not the end. It is the beginning of a new chapter, one where we are strengthened, refined, and equipped for all that lies ahead. Every woman is uniquely created by God with purpose and intention. From the very beginning, God has had a plan for her life, a plan filled with promise, hope, and a future that is beyond what she may see in her current circumstances. Yet, as women navigate the complexities of life, they may sometimes feel unsure of their direction, overwhelmed by the challenges they face, or uncertain about their value. Despite these feelings, God's plan for her remains unshaken. His purpose for her life is certain, and it is filled with divine potential, no matter where she finds herself on her journey. Understanding God's plan for her begins with recognizing that she was created intentionally and with great purpose. In Jeremiah 29:11, God speaks to His people, saying, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." This promise, while spoken to the Israelites, is also true for every woman. God's plans for her life are not accidental or arbitrary. They are crafted with the utmost care and wisdom, guided by His love and His infinite knowledge of who she is and what she can become. God has always had a vision for her life. Before she was even born, He had already set apart her path, intricately weaving her strengths, talents, and dreams into the fabric of her existence. She may not always understand every step, but she can be confident that God in His goodness is leading her toward fulfillment. His plan for her involves more than just survival. It is about thriving, experiencing peace, joy, and fulfillment as she walks in alignment with His will. God's plan for her is not confined to one specific outcome, career, or relationship, though these things may be important parts of the journey. His plan is much broader and more beautiful than any worldly achievement or possession. It encompasses her emotional well-being, her spiritual growth, and her relationship with Him. As she seeks Him, God unfolds His purpose for her life in ways that are deeply personal and transformative. One of the most profound aspects of God's plan for her is that it is tailored to her individuality. No two women are the same, and God knows that each of His daughters has unique qualities, dreams, and passion. He doesn't expect her to fit into a predefined mold or to compare herself to others. Rather, He invites her to embrace her own identity and walk in the freedom of who she is. The Apostle Paul reminds us in Ephesians 2:10, "For we are His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand, that we should walk in them." Her life is not a random series of events. It is a beautifully orchestrated design by the Creator, and He has already set the path for her to follow. In the journey of discovering and walking in God's plan for her, she may face moments of doubt and difficulty. Life often brings challenges that can make her question her purpose or feel overwhelmed by the weight of responsibilities. In these times, it is essential to remember that God's plan does not promise a life free from struggle, but it does promise His presence in the midst of those struggles. The Bible assures us in Isaiah 41:10, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Even in moments of uncertainty, she is never alone. God is always with her, guiding her steps and helping her to rise above the challenges that life presents. God's plan for her also involves her growth and transformation. The journey toward fulfilling her divine purpose is not always instantaneous. It is a process, and sometimes it requires patience, perseverance, and even discomfort. But God uses every season of her life, both the joys and the trials, to refine her, shape her character, and draw her closer to Him. In Romans 8:28, we are reminded that we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to His purpose. The difficulties she faces are not in vain. God is working in her and through her, even in the hard time, to bring about His perfect will for her life. Another critical aspect of God's plan for her is that it is filled with hope. No matter how bleak the circumstances may seem, God's plan always carries the promise of redemption, restoration, and new beginnings. When she feels like she has reached the end of her rope, God is faithful to bring new opportunities and open doors that will lead her into a brighter future. The hope that she has in Him is not a fleeting wish, but a confident expectation that God will fulfill His promises. As Proverbs 23:18 says, "Surely there is a future, and your hope will not be cut off." Furthermore, God's plan for her is not just about her own life. It is also about the impact she can have on the lives of others. As a woman, she has been equipped with unique gifts, talents, and qualities that can bring healing, encouragement, and support to those around her. Whether she is a mother, a sister, a friend, a mentor, or a leader, God has placed her in a specific sphere of influence for a reason. Her words, actions, and example can be a source of light and hope to others. Her life is meant to glorify God and point others toward His love and grace. One of the most beautiful aspects of God's plan for her is the invitation to trust Him completely. As she walks through life, she may not always see the next step or understand the direction God is leading her, but He invites her to trust in His perfect timing and His unwavering faithfulness. When she surrenders her plans to Him, He takes her hand and leads her through the unknown, guiding her with His wisdom and love. Proverbs 3:5-6 encourages her, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, straight your paths." There will be moments when she feels unsure, when life doesn't seem to make sense, or when it feels like her dreams are slipping away. It is in these moments that God's plan for her is most evident. His plan is not bound by the limitations of time or circumstance. It is a plan that transcends earthly wisdom and is rooted in His eternal perspective. She can rest in the assurance that He sees the bigger picture and is working all things together for her good. Another essential aspect of God's plan for her is His desire for her to experience peace and joy. The world often offers temporary happiness or satisfaction that fades quickly, but God's plan for her includes lasting peace, a peace that comes from knowing Him and being in alignment with His will. In John 14:27, Jesus says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid." True peace comes from trusting in God's plan for her life, knowing that He is in control and that He will never leave her or forsake her. Finally, God's plan for her is a plan of eternal significance. While this life may have its challenges and uncertainties, God's plan for her extends far beyond her time on earth. His plan includes the promise of eternal life with Him, where every tear will be wiped away and she will experience the fullness of joy in His presence. As she walks through life, she can remember that her ultimate purpose is to glorify God and reflect His love to the world. The purpose He has for her is not just for the here and now, but has eternal value. as it contributes to his grand narrative of redemption and restoration. God's plan for her is full of promise, hope, and peace. While she may not always understand every step, she can trust that God's plan is good and that he is guiding her toward a future that is filled with purpose and fulfillment. It is a plan designed with love, rooted in grace, and anchored in the eternal truths of who she is in Christ. No matter where she is on her journey, God's plan for her is unfolding, and she can walk forward in faith, knowing that he is with her every step of the way. Every woman is uniquely created by God, with purpose and intention. From the very beginning, God has had a plan for her life, a plan filled with promise, hope, and a future that is beyond what she may see in her current circumstances. Yet, as women navigate the complexities of life, they may sometimes feel unsure of their direction, overwhelmed by the challenges they face, or uncertain about their value. Despite these feelings, God's plan for her remains unshaken. His purpose for her life is certain, and it is filled with divine potential, no matter where she finds herself on her journey. Understanding God's plan for her begins with recognizing that she was created intentionally and with great purpose. In Jeremiah 29:11, God speaks to his people saying, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for welfare, and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." This promise, while spoken to the Israelites, is also true for every woman. God's plans for her life are not accidental or arbitrary. They are crafted with the utmost care and wisdom, guided by his love and his infinite knowledge of who she is and what she can become. God has always had a vision for her life. Before she was even born, he had already set apart her path, intricately weaving her strengths, talents, and dreams into the fabric of her existence. She may not always understand every step, but she can be confident that God in his goodness is leading her toward fulfillment. His plan for her involves more than just survival. So it's about thriving, experiencing peace, joy, and fulfillment as she walks in alignment with his will. God's plan for her is not confined to one specific outcome, career, or relationship. Oh, these things may be important parts of the journey. His plan is much broader and more beautiful than any worldly achievement or possession. It encompasses her emotional well-being, her spiritual growth, and her relationship with him. As she seeks him, God unfolds his purpose for her life in ways that are deeply personal and transformative. One of the most profound aspects of God's plan for her is that it is tailored to her individuality. No two women are the same, and God knows that each of his daughters has unique qualities, dreams, and passions. He doesn't expect her to fit into a predefined mold or to compare herself to others. Rather, he invites her to embrace her own identity and walk in the free she is. The Apostle Paul reminds us in Ephesians 2:10, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them." Her life is not a random series of events. It is a beautifully orchestrated design by the Creator, and he has already set the path for her to follow. In the journey of discovering and walking in God's plan for her, she may face moments of doubt and difficulty. Life often brings challenges that can make her question her purpose or feel overwhelmed by the weight of responsibilities. In these times, it is essential to remember that God's plan does not promise a life free from struggle, but it does promise his presence in the midst of those struggles. The Bible assures us in Isaiah 41:10, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Even in moments of uncertainty, she is never alone. God is always with her, guiding her steps and helping her to rise above the challenges that life presents. God's plan for her also involves her growth and transformation. The journey toward fulfilling her divine purpose is not always instantaneous. It is a process, and sometimes it requires patience, perseverance, and even discomfort. But God uses every season of her life, both the joys and the trials, to refine her, shape her character, and draw her closer to Him. In Romans 8:28, we are reminded that we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to His purpose. The difficulties she faces are not in vain. God is working in her and through her, even in the hard times, to bring about His perfect will for her life. Another critical aspect of God's plan for her is that it is filled with hope. No matter how bleak the circumstances may seem, God's plan always carries the promise of redemption, restoration, and new beginnings. When she feels like she has reached the end of her road, God is faithful to bring new opportunities and open doors that will lead her into a brighter future. The hope that she has in is not a fleeting wish, but a confident expectation that God will fulfill His promises. Yes, Proverbs 23:18 says, "Surely there is a future, and your hope will not be cut off." Furthermore, God's plan for her is not just about her own life. It is also about the impact she can have on the lives of others. As a woman, she has been equipped with unique gifts, talents, and qualities that can bring healing, encouragement, and support to those around her. Whether she is a mother, a sister, a friend, a mentor, or a leader, God has placed her in a specific sphere of influence for a reason. Her words, actions, and example can be a source of light and hope to others. Her life is meant to glorify God and point others toward His love and grace. One of the most beautiful aspects of God's plan for her is the invitation to trust Him completely. As she walks through life, she may not always see the next step or understand the direction God is leading her, but He invites her to trust in His perfect timing and His unwavering faithfulness. When she surrenders her plans to Him, He takes her hand and leads her through the unknown, guiding her with His wisdom and love. Proverbs 3:5-6 encourages her to trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and then He will make straight your paths. There will be moments when she feels unsure, when life doesn't seem to make sense, or when it feels like her dreams are slipping away. It is in these moments that God's plan for her is most evident. His plan is not bound by the limitations of time or circumstance. It is a plan that transcends earthly wisdom and is rooted in His eternal perspective. She can rest in the assurance that He sees the bigger picture and is working all things together for her good. Another essential aspect of God's plan for her is His desire for her to experience peace and joy. The world often offers temporary happiness or satisfaction that fades quickly. But God's plan for her includes lasting peace, a peace that comes from knowing Him and being in alignment with His will. In John 14:27, Jesus says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid." True peace comes from trusting in God's plan for her life, knowing that He is in control and that He will never leave her or forsake her. Finally, God's plan for her is a plan of eternal significance. While this life may have its challenges and uncertainties, God's plan for her extends far beyond her time on earth. His plan includes the promise of eternal life with Him, where every tear will be wiped away and she will experience the fullness of joy in His presence. As she walks through life, she can remember that her ultimate purpose is to glorify God and reflect His love to the world. The purpose He has for her is not just for the here and now, but has eternal value, as it contributes to His grand narrative of redemption and restoration. God's plan for her is full of promise, hope, and peace. While she may not always understand every step, she can trust that God's plan is good and that He is guiding her toward a future that is filled with purpose and fulfillment. It is a plan designed with love, rooted in grace, and anchored in the eternal truths of who she is in Christ. No matter where she is on her journey, God's plan for her is unfolding, and she can walk forward in faith, knowing that He is with her every step of the way.